Hi again. Today we're going to be having a look at sensor cleaning. It's a topic that a lot of people are quite nervous of, for obvious reasons. So I thought I'd just put this together and show you how easy it is to do. And there's not a lot to worry about. I've been kindly loaned a camera that needs a sensor clean, so we're going to use that instead of mine. Mine's a mirrorless, this is a DSLR. There's very little difference other than on the DSLR we've got to lock up the mirror. I'll just quickly run through a couple of bits and pieces that you're going to need and that you're going to know. Okay, let's get started. So basically, every time I do a sensor clean, I've always got certain things to hand, because it may not necessarily be just the sensor that's got dust on it or marks on it. It could be the rear element of the lens, it could be the front element of the lens, it could be just the mirror. There's all sorts of bits and pieces, so I always make sure I've got everything handy. Now what I usually start with, this is the kit that I use. This one's a full frame kit. For the camera I'm going to be using, it's a crop sensor, so I have a crop size sensor swab. They both look identical when they're in the packets, as you can see there. One is a crop, one is a full frame. The full frame is 24mm, that's that one. The crop sensor is 12mm, obviously because the sensor is smaller. And that's the one we're going to be using today. When it's my camera, obviously I'm using that one. The solution that actually comes in the kit is this. It's isopropanol alcohol mixed with other bits and pieces, but it's very kind to surfaces. You can use it on the sensor, you can use it on lenses, you can use it even to clean the camera body. And generally that's what I do. When I've done a sensor clean, I've got a swab left over, I will then just put a couple of drops on this swab and go around the outside of my body on the camera, getting all the muck out of the crevices and bits and pieces. It keeps your camera looking nice and clean. What I have found though on an older camera of mine is I don't use this on the viewfinder. For some reason the coatings don't like it, and over time they start mottling and getting a little bit of a rainbow effect on them. They're not actually disappearing, but it's obviously having an effect, so I don't use it on my viewfinder glass, but it is perfectly safe for the rest of the glass and everything else on your camera. Just be very careful if you've got a camera with a plastic screen on the back. I would always test it first, because some versions of this, different manufacturers' versions of this, can damage and soften the plastic on the screen. Again, don't use it on cheaper lenses that have plastic lenses. Only use it on glass surfaces. That's probably the safest way of actually getting around the problem. What I also have to hand all the time, like I've already mentioned, it could be that it's on the lens itself. Now I have two things I use to clean my lenses with. One is a nice lint-free lens cloth. I use the RSPB ones because they're big and they're very, very soft, and they do machine wash, so they're very good and they last. They don't fray, they don't disintegrate. And I've got 3 of these now, and I keep them in different places because I keep misplacing them. And not one of them has started to deteriorate yet, and they've been washed umpteen times. The other thing I have is Zeiss lens wipes. Now there are other lens wipes available. I find the Zeiss ones very good. They're about £4 or £5 and you get a pack of, I think it's 24. This is for stubborn marks, fingerprints, grease, that type of thing, for lenses. I also use them to clean the screen on the back of my camera. It's perfectly safe to use them on glass. Be very, very wary of using it on plastic ones. I have known even the Zeiss lens wipes to cause damage to a plastic one in the past. And the other essential piece of kit, a blower. Mainly because it's dust. If it's not greasy dust or sticky dust, it will come out with just a blow, and you can do a dry clean as opposed to doing a wet clean, which is what we're going to demonstrate today on the actual camera. So I'll show you how to do the whole thing from beginning to end and all the bits and pieces, but 9 times out of 10 a quick blow with this will get rid of the dust off your sensor. Okay, shall we get into it? Right, so I've changed the angle on the camera now so you can actually see what I'm doing as opposed to looking at my ugly mug, because you don't really need to see that. There is two essential bits and pieces that I forgot to tell you about before you start any of this. One is glasses, so I can see what I'm doing if you wear glasses, because if you can't see, you ain't going to do a very good job. The other thing is, of course, a nice cup of coffee. Right, first things first. Like I say, I've been loaning this camera to give it a clean for the purposes of this demonstration. I'm just going to quickly go over everything that I do on the camera, because when I do a sensor clean, I try and do a little bit of other cleaning and maintenance as well. So first of all, what I usually do is I'll have a look at the front element and see how dirty that is, because these can get very dirty without people actually realising. I've got into the habit now, every time I use the camera, whether I'm on a shoot or whatever, I will clean the lenses before I even go, and I'll give the camera body a little bit of a blowout as well. So if you get into the habit of doing it, then you'll always do it, you'll never forget. So on this particular one, there is dust on the front element. There's also a couple of little marks. So all I'm going to do, just use the blower, quick blow. That's got rid of the loose dust. Now, if you can get away with not using a lens wipe, which is that one there, then all the better, because the less you put onto your lenses, the longer they're obviously going to last over time. Most lenses would actually outlast me, you, and probably your grandchildren. I mean, I'm using 50-year-old lenses on my Sony, so, you know, I mean, that's that goes to show. But anyway, just using the soft cloth, just give it a quick wipe, gently, don't have to put any pressure on. And if there's still a couple of stubborn marks, just a quick bit of breath, and always circular motions from the centre going to the outside. That just helps to prevent smearing. Now looking at this, there is actually dust inside this lens, so I ain't going to be able to clean that. That's a professional job. Most of the time your lens will focus through dust that's inside, but it's always worth keeping the outside elements as clean as you possibly can. Before you ever put a lens cap on, back on your camera, and 99% of people forget this, me included, but give the lens cap a blow, because any dust on there is going to end up back on the lens. So there we go. That's the front of the lens cleaned, done. Then what I do, I'm not used to using Canons now. I keep forgetting which switch is which. Just move that so the strap's out of the way so I don't accidentally knock it on the floor. Looking at the rear element, a couple of little bits of dust. Yeah, that's actually quite clean on the back, and quite often or not, you won't get fingerprints and grease and whatever on the rear element. Occasionally you will. I've had mud in there in the past, mainly because when you're changing lenses out in the field, you put your lens down without thinking to grab a shot, and you pick it up and realise you've put it in a puddle. But it cleans off. I mean, especially on weather sealed lenses, you should be perfectly fine. So that's that. And this is a weather sealed lens. The way you can tell is this one has a rubber ring on the back, and that is actually the weather sealing seal. Right, so next thing I do is we'll have a look in. As you can see on this, well, you probably might not be able to see on this one. Let's just angle that so you can. The mirror is down at the moment. There we go. But that mirror can get dust on it like this one has, and you can see that through your viewfinder. And a lot of people who look through the viewfinder and see spots think it's on the sensor. It's not on a DSLR, it is on the mirror or the focusing plate, which is the one up in the top of the camera. That's where the dust is if you can see it in the viewfinder. If you can see it in a mirrorless, it's on the sensor. But anyway, another one, all we do, blower again, camera face down, without the lens on obviously. and just give it a quick blow. Now it looks like there's a stubborn little bit on the mirror. I don't use these very often, little cotton buds, but if you're very gentle on a mirror, never ever ever put pressure on a mirror. It is very thin glass, it will break. But if you're very careful and very gentle, occasionally if there's a stubborn little bit of, won't use that in, there's a loose bit, stubborn little dot like there is on this one, just a gentle wipe. And it's gone, but there is another one at the back. No pressure whatsoever. I'm literally just using its own weight, and it's enough texture on the board to grab hold of the speck and pull it out. Right, it's the mirror and the viewfinder clean. Now on a DSLR, when you've not got the lens on, you do have to switch them on. And it's important to have a fully charged battery when you do this as well. Because if the mirror, you're going to lock the mirror up, and if the mirror comes down because the battery's run out while you're cleaning it, you can damage all sorts. So always make sure your battery's fully charged. Into menu. On the Canon, you come across to the spanner in the menu, and you come down and you've got one for sensor cleaning. Now if you click clean now or auto cleaning, all that does is vibrate the sensor to try and shake off any loose dust. That's not doing a lot really, because the dust is still inside the camera. It's pointless in my opinion. So come down to clean manually and press OK or set or whichever one it is, and it's telling me the mirror's going to block up so I can clean the sensor. And if you listen, there we go, the mirror's locked up. Now if I can just catch the light, there you go, you can see the sensor. That's the sensor, that's the bit you're going to be cleaning. So it's nice and easy. It's a given size, but so is the swab. So the swab will only fit one way, and the important thing to note on this is you only ever go across once with either side of the swab, then the swab is useless as far as sensor cleaning goes. So we've got it exposed. I'm just holding it up to the light. You probably won't be able to see this, but I've got a light right behind me which I can see, and I can see a few specks and bits and pieces. So what I'm going to do, just give it a quick blow. And there is one or two in there. So what I'm actually going to do is switch the camera off. That's it, mirror's locked down. Put the lens back on. I'm going to take a shot, a test shot, to see if I can see the spots on the sensor. Basically what I've got here is a light table, so it's nice and bright and white. You can just use a piece of A4 paper. I just find this better because it's easy to get a good exposure, but because it's plain white, the camera's going to find it difficult to focus. So all I do, rather than mess about with all the settings and put it into manual focus and everything else, I put it into autofocus. I zoom to, on this particular lens, 55mm. I'm focusing on that just so it gives me something to focus on. And then it's giving me an image on the back of the camera. There we go. Oh, there we go. Yep, there we go. So basically I've got a white image with a little black square in the middle, and I can do a couple of these, so I can move the subject down. I can check around the outside at the moment and then move the subject so it frames up in the corner, and then check the centre of the thing as well. But what I'm now doing is looking for dots, and I'll just turn that off because it's blinding me. And all you do, if I can find it on this one, there's got to be a zoom option. There we go. All you do is you zoom in. Right, we're zooming, right. And what I'm seeing, you're not going to be able to see this on here properly. Just make sure it's not dust on the back screen. There are spots Yeah, they are where I thought they were. Now what you got to remember, when you look at an image like that, if the spots appear on the top, it's on the bottom of your sensor. If it's on the left, it's on the left. If it's on the right, it's on the right. What you've got to bear in mind is the image is flipped the other way around. So if a spot appears in this corner, when you look at the sensor, look in this bottom corner, at the moment there is actually a little group of spots just there. So we're now going to strip the camera down again and go in and do a wet clean. Right, I'm just going to give it a quick little blowout again just before we start, because the mirror's been up and down a couple of times, so it could have loosened some of the dust, so we'll just get rid of that. Never let the plastic part of that touch anything inside the camera. You can cause all sorts of damage. I mean, the sensor itself is covered with a sheet of plastic. It's very, very thin and very, very easy to mark, so never let that touch that, because that mark's there, it's there. And the same with the mirror mechanism. You've got to be very careful. So just basically put it in, but don't touch anything. Right, so we've got our swab and we've got our solution, as mentioned before, and our cup of coffee. Now on these swabs you can actually tell which end is the handle, which end is the actual swab itself. There will be notches cut out as there is on this particular packet. I'll just see if you can see that. Yeah, just there and there. Open it there and only ever touch the handle end. Whereas you can see there on the swab, the little spade end, never ever ever touch that with your fingers, because the grease off your fingers will transfer onto it and onto your sensor. So you just tear it off. And never use a used swab either. I always get the handle out slightly, make sure the lid is off the bottle, because if you take the swab completely out, you can't put it down. How are you going to open the bottle? It's very, very difficult. So we take it out. And what do? I'll just bring it up here like this. Might not be in focus, I can't tell because I can't see without my glasses. So 2 drops on that corner, turn it over, and 2 drops in the same corner. That's all it needs. Yep, spreads around nicely. And what we do, these are flexible, so if you see it bend, that's what it's meant to do. You start by putting the corners of each corner of the swab into the corners of the sensor and just lower it down, and then just drag it across nice and slowly, but keep going until you get to the other edge of the sensor and lift out. Then you go back in and do the same from the other side and just wipe it across. And that swab now is rendered useless as far as sensor cleans go. I will show you in a minute using that swab on a flat surface exactly what I'm doing. But that, yep, that looks good, that does. I can't see any spots. So we can switch the camera off. And the mirror comes down. And other than doing another test shot, that is a sensor clean done. One word of warning as well, always make sure the lid is on that, because it's isopropyl alcohol, it evaporates. Right, so basically what I was doing just for clarity, I'm not going to put any solution onto the swab, but 2 drops in one corner, turn it over, 2 drops in another. Now all you do is we'll use this surface now as a makeshift sensor, and you literally lower it down onto the edge of the sensor, so you're into the corners, and you can see that little bit of flex there. You need that, and then you just literally drag it across until you're in the upright position, and by then you should be at the other edge of the sensor. If not, you can just push it in, but you've got to do it in one movement. And then you lift up to take the tension out of the swab, lower it back down, put some tension on it, and move it back and out. Never ever ever do that. That is just causing friction and problems with the coating on the front of your sensor. If you've got a stubborn one, new swab, new solution, and keep doing it until it's gone. It will go eventually. It may take 4 or 5 swabs if it's a stubborn one, but usually if it's that stubborn, it's because you haven't cleaned the sensor properly in the past, and more grease and dust attaches itself to that spot, and it just builds and builds and builds, and any oil and grease that was on the bottom of it slowly dries out, and it gets really sticky. But it will clear up eventually, so it's just a case of keep going for it. Right, and that's how simple it is to clean a sensor. It sounds a bit long-winded when I'm actually talking about it, but once you've done it once or twice, it literally takes 2 minutes. And that's all you got to remember. You're not going to damage anything if you stick to what I've said. You got to apply pressure, but gently. Never use anything coarse or abrasive on your sensor. Always use the proper cleaning solution, sensor cleaning solution. Don't just use lens cleaning solution. It works the other way. This can be used on lenses, but don't use lens solution on a sensor. Always buy specific sensor cleaning solution. It's very important. If your sensor goes, it costs more than a new camera to replace the sensor. And that goes for the protective covering on the front of it as well. I know that because we've had customers come into the shop in the past, and that's exactly what they've done. And ignore all these jokey videos on the YouTube and everything else where you see people with bowls of soapy water dunking the camera using a scrubbing brush or a Brillo pad. Yeah, they're funny, tongue-in-cheek, but some people take them seriously. I'm just asking you not to. It's not worth it. So yeah, the video will be on the Camera Club site for the foreseeable future, so you can always refer back to it. If you've got any questions, just post them below, or if you've got my email or got me through Facebook or can get hold of me through the club, feel free to do so. If you want me to sit with you and go through a sensor clean, I don't have a problem doing that either. Just let me know. Like I say, it's getting over the nerves of doing it. That's the hardest thing. Seriously, that's as hard as it gets, is, you know, getting the confidence to do it. And it's the same with all parts of photography. You know, once you've got the confidence to do a certain thing, it becomes easy and second nature. And that's the way you do it. Like I say, the only difference is with the mirrorless one is you don't have to lock the mirror up. And full frame's even easier because it's a bigger swab and you can see the dust better. So, okay, I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.